The British people deserve to know which party is serious about stopping the invasion on our southern coast and which party is not. I, Madam Deputy Speaker, am utterly serious about ending the scourge of illegal migration.
I would love to be having a front page of the Telegraph with a plane taking off to Rwanda. That's my dream.
Well, it's a strange dream, but that is Suella Braverman for you, Britain's Home Secretary, promising or threatening to get tough on illegal migrants. I suppose it depends on your point of view. Anyway, Braverman uses such harsh rhetoric about migrants and refugees that she's sometimes nicknamed Cruella Braverman. She certainly knows how to grab the headlines, though, using words like scourge and invasion. You might say she courts drama, which is no surprise, given she was named after Suellen, a character from the American soap opera Dallas. No, I am not kidding. She was born in 1980 and her parents were big fans of the show. Now, if her life was an episode of Dallas, it might look something like this. Suella Braverman's short political career has been full of drama, closely tracking the chaos of the government as a whole. Her first big role was as Attorney General under Boris Johnson. He was booted out in September, but she survived. In fact, Braverman was promoted by Johnson's replacement Liz Truss to Home Secretary, one of the great offices of state. That didn't last long. She was sacked after just a few weeks for breaching the ministerial code. A few days later, Truss herself was forced out over her mishandling of the economy. And amazingly, a third Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, brought Suella Braverman back as Home Secretary.
The new Prime Minister defended his decision to reinstate Suella Braverman as Home Secretary just days after she resigned over a breach of security.
Rishi Sunak said at noon he wanted a government of integrity and professionalism, and then 5 hours later he reappointed the Home Secretary, who had to resign less than a week ago for breaching the ministerial code, for security lapses.
The Prime Minister promised to govern with integrity and humility. So if he has an ounce of either, will he admit his mistake and sack the Home Secretary without the delay?
Yet he could not do without Suella Braverman, whose endorsement was vital to his leadership bid. As the former chair of the European Research Group, she brought with her the support of the hardest Eurosceptics in the Conservative Party. They also relished her hard rhetoric on illegal migration.
Why can't you stop the small boats coming?
It's a deeply entrenched and complex problem. That's a simple answer. And I would love to be here saying, well, claiming victory. I would love to be having a front page of the Telegraph with a plane taking off to Rwanda. That's my dream.
But her dream of sending undocumented migrants to Rwanda just isn't taking off. There have been no flights thanks to so-called lefty lawyers successfully challenging the government's plans in the courts.
We need to change the definition of asylum and move away from this European definition, which has become very broad. It's exploited by lefty lawyers and means it's very hard to remove people.
Braverman was keen to show she was getting tough. But then this happened.
Kent police have confirmed that several petrol bombs were thrown at a migrant processing centre in Dover.
This incredibly unusual attack on an immigration centre in Kent did nothing to temper her discourse.
The British people deserve to know which party is serious about stopping the invasion on our southern coast and which party is not.
As a moderate Conservative, I couldn't vote Conservative while she remains Home Secretary because of it's not just these comments, but ones that she's made successively.
Our Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has in the past said tougher things about this crisis than any minister, certainly cabinet minister, before. And it seems that the London-based media, Remainer, globalist media, have got it in for her in just the most extraordinary way. They want her to be hounded out of office.
A few days after the attack on the detention centre, which also suffered from overcrowding, Braverman flew in by military helicopter to show she was getting a handle on the situation. Not that the tenacious British press will let her off that easily.
Are you concerned about the conditions at Manston, Home Secretary? Are the conditions in Manchester inhumane? Is this crisis your fault? Home Secretary?
We're going to hear from our guests in just a minute. But first, what do ordinary Brits think of Suella Braverman? Well, we only have a small sample, but here's what our producer found out on the streets of London.
So the UK's Home Secretary has described the recent influx of immigrants into the UK as an invasion. What do you make of her assessment?
I think it's a disgrace. I think it's disgraceful language. An invasion is people coming to do us harm, and these are people fleeing war and persecution. So I totally the wrong choice of words.
Don't let people in that shouldn't be here. And let the people in that should be here, the genuine ones.
I've got lots of friends who come from Africa and from Asia, and they come here legitimately through the due process. So is it fair to them that they have to go through all that process and other people just turn up when they feel like it?
I do think with the way we are going at the moment, I know a lot of people are worried about, maybe some people are for that because they're worried about unemployment levels, but I just think we should be confident enough that we should welcome everybody and have equal opportunities. So I think that's disgraceful.
Let's bring in our guest now, and Andre Walker is a Conservative commentator and journalist and joins us from Windsor. And Qays Sediqi is a human rights solicitor who played a role in grounding the flights to Rwanda. Welcome to both of you. Andre Walker, Suella Braverman, she had to resign in terrible circumstances, and then she was brought back to the government by Rishi Sunak. Now, they say she apologised and that she's the right person for the job. What is the real reason for bringing back Braverman?
Well, I think the first and most important thing is to recognise that she is somebody who's a genuine believer in conservatism. The job of Home Secretary is incredibly difficult for any Conservative simply because the party faithful, party voters, want a strong line on immigration, a strong line on law and order. And of course, the government machine doesn't want that. And indeed, there is a whole raft of left-wing lawyers who will attempt to prevent it. So having somebody in there who's willing to be tough is extremely important.
OK, look, she talks tough on stopping the boats, but what has she actually achieved, if anything, both as Attorney General and now as Home Secretary?
Well, I mean, you have to ask that question, don't you? And I think she has really struggled. I mean, what we've done that I think has caused all the boats to come over is that we, and you'll remember this rule from somebody else, the French built a wall round the ferry port and made Britain pay. And that prevented a huge number of people coming in via lorries on the ferry. But of course, now they're coming in by dinghies. The reality is there is a huge movement in Britain to allow illegal migration to be unfettered, and the Home Secretary attempts to fight back against it. We don't always win, unfortunately. And at the moment, the left-wing law firms that are making themselves so rich off this are beating us. But you know what? There's going to be a crackdown. It won't last forever.
Look, you mentioned lefty lawyers. I don't know if Qays is a lefty lawyer, but he's certainly a human rights lawyer, immigration lawyer. Qays, you actually played a role in preventing the flights taking off to Rwanda. On what legal grounds did you challenge that?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. The basis on which we grounded the planes was the fact that we made an application to the High Court where the interim relief application was refused, but then we went to the Court of Appeal. And during that process, within hours, another set of law firms applied to the European Court of Human Rights and applied for a Rule 39 application. And that's basically what prevented the flights from taking off. And at the Court of Appeal, that is what the ultimate decision was, where they said that the legality of the policy itself would need to be considered before people could be sent off to Rwanda.
Suella Braverman was the Attorney General at the time. Is that right, Qays?
Yes.
So what was the mistake there by the government?
The mistake there by the government was that having been there on the ground and seeing everything unfold, the main issue that we were having was time. Usually with these applications, we have numerous months or years to prepare for it. But in these circumstances, we literally had days to prepare for it. Clients were given notice of intent, and they had to, within 7 days, had to provide reasons as to why they could not be returned, which is impossible. Where during that time, they had to find a solicitor, they had to find legal representatives. So all of these kind of things to provide them with advice and actually challenging the policy itself, which was impossible.
That's not the way the British immigration system works. And as you well know, the way it really works is this. Law firms like yours file continuous, torturous appeals time after time in order for the deportation to time out. so you can subvert the democratic system in this country and buy yourself a new Lamborghini off the money. Fact.
But with this policy, which was newly introduced to the immigration system, to be given 7 days to provide representation as to why a vulnerable person cannot be returned to Rwanda, it's ridiculous. And
I mean,
it's diabolical.
42% of people arriving on boats are from Albania, a NATO country that is an EU accession country. Do you personally believe any of these people are refugees? Do you just represent them for the money, or is it actually something more sinister?
The numbers speak for themselves. Over 50% of those individuals who have claimed asylum are granted asylum in the UK of the Albanian community.
You win.
So,
you win. Congratulations. What is it about Albania? What is it about Albania that you need to flee from? What is it? I mean, I think you're a liar. I think you're one of the most dishonest people. I think you are just making a lot of money ripping off the British taxpayer.
I don't know what these.
Can we let Qays? Let's Qays have
we don't know. We don't know what this sort of what Suella has against Albanians, but we have to bear in mind the fact that thousands of refugees come here, and they come from Afghanistan, Iraq, Sudan, Iran, all these other countries where they come from. But the main emphasis and focus is put on these Albanians. And as I said, over 50% of the asylum claims from Albanian countries are allowed, and most if not all are trafficked to the UK. So all of that, as I've always been saying, there has to be a human element to it as well, that we have to have compassion for these individuals.
But it's an industry. But it's an industry for you, isn't it? The reality is you don't believe, and I don't believe, that people from Albania are genuine refugees, but you make a lot of money off legal aid, subverting the democratic process. I mean, the question of this show was, why has Suella Braverman failed? The reason she's failed is because people like you subvert the system in order to get rich. That's the reason.
Qays, we've heard that. Qays, we've heard that accusation already to this show. Let me ask you something. Some of the objections, the most frequent objections to illegal migrants being granted asylum, is that they've already passed through countries that are deemed safe. Leave aside that Britain deems Albania to be safe and prosperous, but what about Germany and France and so on? Is it an obligation under the law to claim asylum in the first safe country or not? Maybe you could clear that up for us.
Well, when we were part of the EU, there was the Dublin III regulations, but since Brexit, that no longer applies and it's been repealed. So, and it is not a crime to claim asylum in the first country that you set foot in. There are numerous factors that need to be taken into account. Most individuals who travel through these European countries are trafficked, and they're controlled by the agents who have control of their journey and who, majority of the time, traffic them and extort them. So they have no say in what countries they...
Qays, just a quick question about that, because I know that sort of remark normally goes past quite easily. But I'm just wondering, to what extent are they the victims and trafficked, and to what extent are they the clients who pay the traffickers to get them to the United Kingdom?
The fact of the matter is that, from experience, the individuals who pay the traffickers to come to the UK to work, they pay them for work in the UK. But what they don't understand is that they enter into a debt bondage, and they are extorted, and they are essentially trafficked, and it's not what they signed up for in the first place. So there's a misconception in relation to that, where they say that individuals are paying these traffickers to actually be trafficked and come to the UK, which is incorrect.
Andre, a quick last question for you. Everybody wants to ask you about this. We've had a Tory government for 12 years, and also Brexit was supposed to be about taking control of the borders and reducing migration. What's happened?
Yeah, well, we haven't got it right yet, have we? And I don't think the Conservative government has been as strong as it could be. But I think there are some changes that I'm hoping will come in. First of all, the effectively vexatious litigation that a lot of these law firms engage in, the torturous appeal after appeals need to go, the access to legal aid that make people in the legal profession so rich by subverting the system have to end. And I think, bluntly, we have to bring in the prison ships. So when you sail to the United Kingdom, you don't land in the United Kingdom, you land on a prison ship, have your details processed there, and are sent back to Albania, or indeed wherever, if you're not a genuine refugee. Because as my colleague just said, you know, in reality, 50% of these fake asylum seekers do succeed in getting asylum.
Andre Walker, Qays Sediqi, thanks so much for your contributions to the Nexus. We're going to look now at how Albanians, as we've heard, have become such a big part of this story. Here's our report on why and how they're heading to Britain in record numbers. 2 years ago, just 50 Albanians arrived in the UK illegally on small boats. Last year, that number rose to 800. This year, the number has skyrocketed to 12,000. 10,000 of them, or around 83%, were single adult men, a statistic that has shocked Britain's Home Office.
Depending on how you classify it, between 1% and 2% of the entire adult male population of Albania.
But why? Why now? Experts say the numbers have risen sharply for a couple of different reasons. First, Albanian gangs have grown stronger in northern France, where the migrants are gathered. They charge Albanians something like $4,000 to cross in a dinghy, which is much cheaper than crossing in the back of a lorry, which is more like $26,000. According to the BBC, Albanian drug gangs are even offering free crossings if their clients agree to work for them when they arrive in the UK. It's all advertised by Albanian smugglers online, usually on TikTok videos. And this, experts say, has been a big factor in driving up the numbers. Once in the UK, the vast majority will claim asylum, saying they are refugees fleeing persecution in Albania. Interestingly, 90% of the women and children have their asylum applications approved. Conversely, 86% of the men have their asylum applications rejected. Of course, some of the Albanian men don't hang around to find out.
But a lot of them are not actually interested in seeing their asylum claim through. They just want to get through it as far as they can. We'll typically put them in a hotel for a couple of days and then they'll disappear.
As a financial plan, that makes a lot of sense. The average hourly wage in Albania is something like $1.70, whereas in the UK it's something like 10 times higher at about $15. Those Albanian men who do disappear will usually find work in cash-heavy jobs, typically car washes, construction, drugs and the sex industry. A recent poll suggests that 60% of Albanian adults want to leave their country. That is more than any other nation in the world except for Haiti, Liberia and Sierra Leone. So this is why Albanians now make up about a third of the 40,000 who have arrived on England's beaches this year illegally, ahead of Afghanistan and Iran. Albania's Prime Minister acknowledges there are problems in his country, but he's still more focused on criticising Suella Braverman for calling this an invasion.
This kind of language is not a policy, is nothing but fueling xenophobia and targeting, singling out community and practically going totally against the great British tradition of integrating the minorities. Britain was a role model in this, and now is becoming like I don't know, like a madhouse.
Okay, let's discuss some of those issues with our second panel of guests. And we're joined by Mike Hookem, who is a former member of the European Parliament. And we also have Fabian Zhilla from the Albanian capital, Tirana. He's an expert on criminal justice and security. Welcome to both of you. Mike Hookem, let me start with you. Albania's Prime Minister describes Braverman's comments as xenophobic and says Britain is becoming a madhouse. Do you accept that characterization?
No, I don't. I think when she spoke about an invasion, I think she was mostly right. I think that the people, the population of the United Kingdom are getting a little bit sick of this invasion that we're getting now into our country. It's now up to 40,000. We're only in November now, so it'll probably be over that by the year's out. And you know what else can you say? But it's an invasion.
Well, Fabian Zhilla, Braverman says when 10,000 men turn up on your coastline in 10 months, it is an invasion. Our other guest here agrees. Why are they wrong?
I think this term is very loaded. I mean, invasion is a term that we use for enemies that want to invade our country. I mean, of course, there is a number that is disturbing, but it's a number that comes in the last 6 months. And we realize that this is something that they saw as an opportunity. We don't have the data, what is the background and the real purpose, but we know that out of 12,000, 2,000 are children and women. And there is, we believe that most of them are going to meet with their families, because this is, we know that there is a diaspora there. Some Albanians have done some good work and opened their businesses, and we are really a society based on the family. But of course, there are discussion about how many of them are exploited by organized crime and for criminal activities.
Mike Hookem, come in.
Well, yeah, the word that was used was invasion. I mean, we use it on a weekend when we're watching football, when the crowd comes onto the pitch, it's an invasion. It doesn't say it's an invading army. It's an invasion because we have that many people turning up. Now, your other guest has just said that they're coming over here to meet with their family. A question I'd always like to ask these people is, if you are legal and you're coming into this country legally, you're coming here with honest intention, it is now costing thousands of pounds, thousands to get you in these boats and across the channel, and these gangsters are getting you into the country. Why don't you just go to Schiphol? Why don't you pay £150, jump on an aircraft, fly in, land into the country, and present your passport?
Fabian, that's for you.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. This is a very good question. And to be honest, we here are more disturbed that this workforce, because this is the people that are going there, the age is between 25, 35, and this is absolutely the workforce that we are looking for, and this is affecting and speeding the aging of the population in Albania. I mean, we are not happy at all, and we are trying as much as we can, and there are a lot of...
If these people are entering in the UK legally and they have good intent, why are they paying thousands upon thousands of pounds to gangsters to get them out across the channel on a boat? These people know very well that if they came into this country in via air or whatever in a legal fashion, they wouldn't be allowed into the country.
First of all, I think there is lack of information, and this is something that it should be addressed. And probably the immigration policies, the brain gain that the UK is trying to attract through the schemes should be better promoted. And I think there is a lack of communication, and this is where the organized crime
I'm sorry to get it coming again,
skillful,
but there are legal entries into this country. The people from the Ukraine came over into this country legally and came through a legal channel. People from Hong Kong have come over into this country legal through a legal channel. Getting on a rubber boat and crossing the English Channel is illegal.
Sir, we have 30,000 people that have applied for, I mean, there are 30,000 visa issued for Albanians to come in the UK, but they are only for tourism and education. We don't have any clear immigration scheme. And this is something that probably both governments are working, because there is a scheme on agriculture. The UK government is providing only 6 months, but this is not promoted, and this is not made known to people.
Fabian.
And I think that if we will address this and make it more visible, then I think people will follow the legal routes, and only people
Fabian, I just need to jump in with a final question, because we're coming towards the end of the show now. And the British government says, Fabian, that Albania is safe and prosperous. But at the same time, we're getting polls that say that 60% of adults want to leave the country. Can you explain why so many people want to leave Albania?
I think there are reasons that are related to the political situation and economy. But on the other hand, we should be aware that there is a mobility, high mobility in many other countries, not only Albania. I recall in 2017 or 16, there were around 100,000 Poles in Britain, and now there are around 600,000. So more than 40% of Polish people returned back after the economy improved. So I think this is a process. We are talking about a region that has passed several wars. It is, and I want to highlight that Albania is a safe country, but is in a quasi cyber war with Iran. Our system has been attacked. We have a group of Russian allegedly agents that were coming in Albania and they are under investigation. We have a conflict, a situation in North Kosovo. So we are talking in a delicate context. But however,
I ask, if people are coming here to seek asylum, there are legal channels for them to come into this country and ask for asylum. Coming on a rubber boat across the channel is not legal, and it's not a safe method.
Mike Hookem,
gentlemen, can I give a personal experience?
Senior police officers in this country saying that Albanians are overtaking the drug trade.
Mike Hookem and Fabian Zhilla, I'm so sorry. We have run out of time, but we do appreciate your contributions as ever. Thank you so much. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. Remember, if you want to see this episode or any of our previous episodes, do go to our channel on YouTube. Just type in Nexus, TRT World. Till next week, though, goodbye.